In this video we're going to see how we can install the JDK onto a Windows based machine. So here on this particular system I'm using Windows 10 and you'll be able to see which version of Windows you're using if you go down to the start menu here and if you type about your PC, or rather type the first few letters of about and then go to about your PC and system settings, then you'll be able to see details of the system that you're on. And if we just scroll up here, you can see here on this particular machine I'm using Windows 10 Pro. Now Windows actually comes in two different flavors. You either have the 32-bit version or the 64-bit version. And you'll be able to see which version you're using over here in the system type section that you can see. So here you can see I've got a 64-bit version of Windows, and you'll also notice as well afterwards it says x64 based processor. Just remember that for a second because we'll need that later. Anyway, if I close this window, and now if I go down to here and I go into Internet Explorer or whichever browser you happen to use on Windows, and in here I'm just going to type JDK download and hit enter. So it doesn't really matter which browser you use. Here I'm using Google, you might be using one of the search engine. Whichever one you happen to use, probably the first link you'll see which you get back is this one here, which is the main downloads page on the Oracle website. So if you just click this, and then if we just say we accept cookies, and this is now the main download page for all of the different versions of the JDK. You'll notice that the first one it's kind of offering you, the one at the top, is Java SE 16, which is the very latest and greatest version of Java. Now in this course we're not actually going to use that one because for beginners it's much better to go with version 8 of the JDK. So if we scroll down here and look for Java SE 8, which we can see here, and then if we click on this JDK download link, and now we're at the page where we can download version 8 of the JDK. So again, just scroll down and then you'll see this section here where this table itemizes all different versions you can get of the JDK. And you can see here we've got versions for Linux-based systems, for Mac, Solaris, and if we scroll down a little bit further, we'll see here we've got two versions for Windows. Now the two versions we can see here, we've got one that says x86 and one that says x64. And what these two denote, x86 means it's a 32-bit version of Windows which you're running, and x64, as we just saw a few moments ago, that means you're using a 64-bit version of Windows. So because I want to install the JDK on a 64-bit version of Windows, as we've seen, I'll be using Windows x64. So if I just click over here onto this link, onto the exe file, which is the installer for the JDK, just say that I've reviewed and accept the license agreement, and then I'm going to hit this download button now. And you'd expect when I hit this button that it would start downloading, but it doesn't do that because unfortunately with Oracle you need to have an account with them to be able to download any of their software, and the JDK is one of those components that requires that. So if you haven't done this, now would be a great time to go ahead and do that. You just click on this create account button here where it says don't have an Oracle account, and you can just basically set yourself up, create a username, password. It's completely free, it doesn't cost anything, but it will basically give you access to any Java downloads that you need to get in future from the Oracle website. And indeed without it you can't even download the JDK now, so definitely go ahead and do that. In the meantime, I already have an account, so I'll just enter my details here. So I'll just enter my email and the password, then just hit sign in. You can see it's saying I want to run or save. I'll just choose to save it first. I always like to save the install files to the downloads directory first of all, and then run them afterwards. That's just in case anything goes wrong with the installer. I've always got that kind of backup option of having the original install file that I can re-execute. So it runs its security scan and it says it's completed. So if I hit view downloads, then I can just hit run from here. I can also close this down as well now. And now that's going to launch the installer, as you can see. So I'll just go down and click this install link. It says, do you want to allow this app to make changes to your device? Yes, I do. So I hit yes. And now here we are at the installation wizard for the JDK. So I'll just get rid of this one as well. And then pretty much from here, you just need to select next through all the different steps. So hit next here. Now from this screen, you could, if you wanted to, you could decide to customize the install. And in actual fact, we're going to do that right now. So I like to have all of my Java tools in a single directory on my C drive. So I'm just going to change this location here. So it's not actually going to be installed inside program files, but instead I'll just remove this program files, just delete that, oops, and I'll just put it in a tools folder here. So basically on my C drive there'll be a folder called tools, and inside there is usually where I install all of the different software development tools that I'm using, and the JDK is one of those. So I might have, for example, the JDK, I'll probably have Eclipse or IntelliJ IDEA as IDEs. I might have other command line tools I use as well, and that kind of thing. So it's just nice because it keeps all of the development specific stuff, just keeps it stored in one single folder, which is nice. And also the other thing as well is where you have folder names with spaces in them, like we saw before where it's C:\program space files for program files, where you have that, sometimes some applications can't read that path name correctly because of the space. So it's just nice to basically, remove kind of issues you might have with that down the line with other programs in future. Just get rid of that completely, remove it out of the equation, and just put it in a folder which is just a very nice, simple, straightforward name with no spaces, no funny characters, nothing like that. So yeah, we're going to install the JDK into a C:\tools folder. So now if I just click OK here, you can see it's accepted that, which is fine. So that's the development tools, which is where it's going to install the Java development kit itself to. We've also got this source code feature as well. This is going to be installed as well by default. But what this is basically a zip file called source.zip, which contains the actual source code of the Java libraries themselves. So most of the libraries and classes that you use when you're developing programs in Java, they're actually programmed in Java themselves, and you can actually see the source code by downloading this as well. So that's oftentimes very nice to be able to have a look inside the actual library classes themselves, or the standard libraries, if you like, which come with Java itself out of the box, to be able to see how some kind of like proper code, if you like, is written. And it's useful for debugging purposes as well. And then finally, we've got the public JRE, which you don't necessarily need, but you may as well install because it means that then other applications which require Java on the web, they can also make use of that, and you'll be able to run those too by having that as well. So JRE is the Java runtime environment, and the JRE is just a collection of components which allows you to just run Java programs without allowing you to actually develop them, whereas the JDK, the Java development kit, that's the collection of tools and components which allow you to actually develop Java programs and also run them as well. But that's the difference between the JDK and the JRE there. But the main thing we're concerned with is getting the JDK on so we can start coding and actually developing programs in Java. So we're going to click Next now. For the JRE, we don't have to bother changing the path. That'll be fine. We're not so bothered about the JRE, to be honest, because we don't really need it. Okay, so now it's installing. You can see. And that's it. Now it says it's been successfully installed. So if you went to Next Steps, which you might like to do, then it will take you to the main documentation page for Java 8. And it might seem kind of daunting at first when you have a look at this diagram and see all the different libraries which are available in Java, but it also gives you a flavor of actually what's possible with Java as well. And each one of these are actually hyperlinked to the main documentation for that particular area. So for example, if you're interested in developing applications which somehow do some form of image processing, then you can go down to this one here, image.io, and click that. And then you'd be able to read all about how Java lets you do that kind of thing. But if we just go back now from here and then point out this section here, which is the tutorials and training guide, I do recommend if you have a look into the Java tutorials and in particular learning the Java language. That's a really great tutorial to consolidate the information in this course and to have a read through to get a deeper understanding on the different elements of Java programming. So yeah, if you put that in your bookmarks, that can be useful. And you could do that as well if you were in Internet Explorer, by the way, just by clicking this star and just, for example, add to favorites. And then it will always be available to you when you go up to your bookmarks. Here you can see, just click trail and you get back to this particular page. But if we close this down for now and then close the installer. So at this point, we've downloaded and we've installed the JDK.